support.
So predominantly you can just stay down here. Even back further. Can you hear her?
Baby, if you're hungry.
Okay.
These are pornographic cards. Did anybody mention that?
Let's get a shot of those.
I'll introduce you to my world.
Okay, Marco, we're rolling.
Okay, rolling tape. Quiet, please. And Steve, when you're ready.
Okay. First, tell us a little bit about the Classic Theater Company.
Classic Theater Company has been in Dallas since 1989. We started out actually in an old warehouse space down on Canton Street, which we renovated and had our own facility for the first 3 years, and then we moved out of there and have since performed mostly here in the cottage.
Now, you moved in the Canton Street downtown.
Canton Street downtown, down at Canton and Good Latimer, where all the beer warehouses are.
Now, you had to move out because of fire code regulations.
Well, somebody complained. We had a complaint. Actually, it wasn't the fire code regulations. It was the fact that they felt it wasn't handicap accessible.
And there was no way to adjust it so it would be.
Yeah, there was a way if you had $20, maybe $30,000, $40,000.
And so we're in this beautiful place here.
Yes.
How did you find it?
The Stone Cottage has been, it's sort of a landmark of Dallas theater. The Addison Center Theater played here for several years, and then they just recently built this facility that surrounds it and moved out and started performing in there and have been letting other theaters rent it. So
What's your role in the company?
I'm the artistic director. I direct all the plays and am the founder of the company.
And tell me about how you got into theater. When did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
Oh, well, ninth grade, but I studied theater. That's what my degrees are in, and that's what I've always planned on doing. I had a theater in New York for about 6 years, the American Shakespeare Repertory, and met my husband and had children and decided New York wasn't where they needed to be, and so we moved down to Dallas, which is where he's from. And theater's just always what we've always done.
Getting back to, what was that role in ninth grade? Do you remember?
May Peterson in Bye Bye Birdie.
Ah, singing included?
Singing included. I studied music, which is why there's so much music in my plays, and made my money out of college doing musicals. It's sort of embarrassing to talk about, you know.
Why? Musicals are great things.
Classic Theater Company people, they normally don't do, you know, Sweet Charity and Bye Bye Birdie. It's not part of the normal classical heritage.
But by having the music as a background, also it's become as you said, a big part of your plays, and in the Queens that's here, that's a big part of the Queen, setting the tone and setting the mood.
Well, I mean, I hear drama, I guess, and so I tend to orchestrate quite a bit in my plays. It's just like I tend to do opening tableaus and closing tableaus. It's what I do. My theater is really my theater, and I don't consider that Classic Theater Company, it's very rare for Classic Theater Company to produce a play that's word for word exactly what's written and the way that most people see a play. We try to create a whole new piece of art, if you will, with what we do. We use the playwrights and we use the plays and we use the actors to create an overall accomplished, unique vision of what we do. So the Classic Theater Company really is my vision of what I see in plays, which I guess I share with people the same way an artist shares their paintings with their visuals, with what they see.
So you create another piece of art out of someone else's art. For example, the playwright writes the words, but you don't feel bound to use exactly those words, probably exactly the way they meant.
We normally use exactly his words. We may edit. we go for classical texts because the reason classical texts are classic is that they have withstood the sands of time, if you will. I mean, normally a classical play that you're seeing now, 100, 200 years after it was written, it's because it's a very good play and it has a lot of complex layers to it. I usually try to distill theater down to a certain layer or to a certain aspect, or try to find a more contemporary layer that may be in the more traditional stagings of the play where it's a 4-hour Hamlet with 56 actors. There's some subtleties in the story that get lost in a production like that. So our Hamlet was 8 people and focused more on the psychological side of the play. But we don't change the language. We use Shakespeare's language or Marlowe's language.
What do you do to change how the play appears then? If you don't change the language, but you bring out a different aspect, for example, in the Hamlet, what instruments do you use to do that?
Actors. Actors and lighting and music. We may modernize the period, we may not modernize the period. What we really modernize is the action. What we modernize is the intellectual background of the character, so that although Hamlet may be Elizabethan or Faustus may be Elizabethan, we give him the psychology of the 1990s, so there's a lot more conflict between sex roles and passion and openness and awareness. And I tend to portray the women probably more intelligently than they have been portrayed through the 1800s when women were not considered to be intelligent. So it's more in the complexion of the character and in the presentation. We'll intercut scenes. We sometimes look at our plays almost like it's a film script, and we might have 2 scenes going on at the same time on stage to try to bring it into nowadays people are so used to things moving quickly and having a lot of texture to them, and plays don't normally do that. You know, they're normally a pretty standard progression of scenes, so we'll try to mix that up at the same time.
What did you find interesting about Frankenstein? I thought it was great that you put that on stage.
Well, that actually happened because we got commissioned to do it. Some agents had come to see several of our classic works and felt that because Frankenstein was a classical novel, we took the novel and adapted the novel. And by using classical actors, you know, you had all this vocal ability and a lot of language ability, and put our, I guess, bent on it. It was, I think, a success. The colleges loved it. The larger houses we played, we toured that all over New England and up into Wisconsin, and played at colleges, and then we also played at standard sort of circuit B theaters where I think we followed Anthony somebody and Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, and you know, actors who have sort of gone past their prime and are doing the circuit of, you know, anti-mame and stuff. So those houses didn't seem to appreciate Frankenstein as much as the colleges. We tend to normally appeal to younger audiences because it's not traditional. Our Frankenstein monster didn't have any bolts or any of that. He had this sort of wild silver nitrate kind of makeup and scars, and was a very contemporary Adam-looking monster, as opposed to, you know, somebody with stitches all over him all sewn together.
You mentioned appealing to the younger audience. Is that what the Queens does?
Well, the Queens is an unusual piece for us, actually. The Queens is a new play. The presentation we do is the play as written. We haven't moved scenes or edited. I don't think we've cut one word of the play, which is unusual for us. What appealed to us is here was a playwright who was approaching a classical or a classically based story. It's roughly a derivative of Richard III. And he seemed to be approaching the play of the Queens in the same way that we approach theater. He converted it to a very sort of oddly poetic but elusive kind of imagery. It's packed with imagery that really has nothing to do with Richard III. And although the base of the storyline is Richard III and the Queen surround Richard III, he invented these women that, if you go through classical plays, they're, you know, little tiny mentions about this big, and developed them into these very intriguing characters. The play is really it's sort of the end of the world at the same time. The process of getting this play up was very interesting because we wanted to keep it classically staged. I mean, the set is fairly traditional, the costumes are traditional. But at the same time, because he had done this elusive poetry and these sort of strange, I mean, it's really like a poetry reading in places, and his imagery is so powerful. He alludes to the dissolution of the world and to the crumbling of the mountains, and the moon imagery, which is a very female-oriented image, is ever present. So although it's Richard III, you kind of get the feeling that they're almost ghosts within a castle, within a world, and that the nuclear holocaust has come and blown the world up, and what has filtered down are these very strong presences and images of people that have formed the world that we live in. So it appealed to us because we really latched on to this playwright as seeing and writing plays in the same way that we try to see and rewrite essentially the plays that we perform.
What do you think the audience takes away from this every night?
Hopefully a thought-provoking discussion on the way home. It's an odd play. You know, I don't know that it leaves you emotionally drained, but it leaves you a bit confused about where you are. The women go through such a strange sort of spiraling effect and then kind of recover and then end in this image of the moon, which is the ending image, that I think mostly they go away with a sort of rethinking of how boring Elizabethan plays are, even though this isn't Elizabethan, because the characters are derivatives of Elizabethan plays. And I think that for women, they mostly go away going, yes, someone finally wrote a play for women. Did you
find it odd when you first heard or read this play that it was done by a man?
Yeah, I did, actually. It was interesting to think that there's a man out there writing for women. And it's very much a woman's play. I mean, he's really written women the way women see women. The translator, Linda Gaborio, has translated other works by the same playwright. And I don't know if it's her influence or I mean, I haven't been able to speak with him and meet with him, but he obviously is a man who loves women.
I found that, because I thought it was, when I was watching the video, and thought it was very interesting that when I was watching it, I said, oh, this must have been written by a woman, and I looked and saw it was written by a man. It's a person who obviously understands women very, very well.
Very well.
Was there a line in this play or something when you first read it that attracted you right to it? For me, it was, because it just gave an image, was Anne is to language as 0 is to numbers.
Well, I'll be honest with you about this play. This was a play that I was searching for plays. We read 20 or 25 plays looking for a season. And we had picked a season of plays. And I was in a bookstore, and this script just sort of jumped at me. I had never heard of the playwright. I had never heard of the play. And I took it home, and I read it. And, of course, being a producer-director, my reaction was, wow, a play that's all women. My women will be so excited because it's hard in classical drama to find a play with a lot of very strong women's roles in it. I then gave it to the 3 of the the core actresses that I use frequently and asked them to read it. And every single one of them individually came back, and the answer is, we love this play. Every single character in it has something that appeals to a woman individually. I mean, there's not one character that you can't find something in them that strikes you as, yes, I have felt that way, or yeah, be mean to her, she's an idiot. And so I think that the real appeal of the play was the casting, and was the fact that I happened to have it. It was sort of an odd turn of events that these actresses all came free at the same time, and I had these actresses and no play. So it sort of was out of necessity and sort of fate, and we don't know, but it's been a very happy combination.
I bet. Do you find it difficult? You talked about hard to find classical plays with strongly written women. Is it the same thing for contemporary plays?
I don't know. I don't do contemporary plays that often. I mean, in general, plays are written for men, and it's just, in general, theater, entertainment, film, all of it is still very oriented towards men. And that's why you get a movie or you get anything that features women, and you have all those quotes floating around the paper going, a woman's movie, as though that's a unique thing, and that's because it is, sadly, a very unique thing, because actresses have a lot more to them than just being pretty and being able to cry when they're supposed to cry. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing we also try to do with our work is emphasize the women as being equals with the men. We're working on Othello right now, and there's been quite a bit of discussion because Othello is normally thought to be this play that's just Othello and Iago, but Desdemona and Emilia are critical to the play and are much more than what they normally are portrayed to be.
And with your theater company, is that something that you think you'll try to bring their roles out just a bit more than maybe they have been in other productions?
Definitely. I mean, I've been very fortunate to work with, essentially we have a company of actors that we work with almost exclusively. And we have core members to those actors, to that company, and then we have some that are not necessarily core to the company, but that when I need an extra woman, there's 2 or 3 women that are the first women I call that I work with. Or if I need a couple more men, there's 2 or 3 men that are the men that I call, and they've worked with us. Most of the people that work with me have worked with me several times. And then we try to bring in someone new and sort of get them used to it and cultivated to it. And you have to be able to work with me to be able to stand the thought process, because I'm not a standard director.
How are you different than?
Not a nice way to say that.
No, it's different. But how are you different than other directors? Do you think?
Because I may not set a play until the night before it opens.
When you say set a play, you mean?
I mean actually find the play. I instinctually find a script that I like. I have actors that I rely on. I rely on my actors a great deal. And I sort of envision the play depending on when all the chemistry starts coming together. This play, The Queens, really didn't come together until the week before it opened. The father didn't
even through all the practices and rehearsals and
yeah,
everything
there's
else.
rehearsals and people are working on things, and I'll say try it this way or try it this way, but I don't commit until you get that surge that inside you goes, this is it.
What was it that brought that feeling for The Queens that made you say, okay, this is it, this is what it's about?
It was finally getting all of it together. The lights and the costumes, and when all that happened, just suddenly everything, you knew where everyone was supposed to be, and every scene happened the way it was supposed to happen. And so it's hard for the actors because they have to be ready. They kind of go, they work and they work and they work, and they kind of get to this point where they have to kind of idle until Janet jump starts.
So Janet puts them in gear, and then you can go.
That's right. So it can be difficult for everybody. And and I try to get better, but generally they all, you have to be a certain kind of actor to be able to deal with that. Some people don't, they can't stand to work that way, and they're very talented and we love them and they love me, but they can't really work with me, or they don't enjoy it when they're here. And then some people just can do it and can feel why it's worth doing it.
But they'll all jump in the car with you again and stay on idle till you tell them to go in gear for Othello.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
They're fighting me right now. Hopefully, yes.
Kept getting tapped and notes and.
That's wonderful.
everything else.
Thank you very much.
I know, but then we, you know.
Sorry, guys.